Hello, dear friends. The pure will be considered mad. The impure will be honored as wise. Knowledge of the immortal soul will be mocked and denied. Thought. Opinion piece. The misunderstood. Ignored. Free spirits. Condemned. Misinterpreted. The price of rejection. Massive ascension cycle. They don't fit the mold. They will find their way home. Oblivion has become too thick. Let's start. There are souls walking this earth who have always known they were different, not because there is anything wrong with them, but because they came with a frequency that the world is only now beginning to recognize. They are the solitary ones, the free spirits, the free thinkers, those who match to the beat of a drum that others cannot hear. Kerry Kay describes the lightbearers as beings from higher dimensions who incarnated in human form out of compassion to help humankind awaken from the false matrix of illusion and forgetfulness during this ascension cycle. These often misunderstood and lowly human beings carry a high frequency that detects lies and remembers the sacred, now being activated by incoming light codes. Most entered the matrix believing the veil would soon be lifted, but underestimated the manipulation, mistaking it for their identity, and resisting any truth that challenges it. The light bearers remember amidst the forgetfulness of others, holding the truth so that others may feel the echo of home and freely choose to awaken. Their act is a story of solidarity, not superiority, working together to keep the door of remembrance open. Missionaries are great beings of light who watched humankind lose itself in density, unable to perceive their presence, and chose to descend into the flesh to catalyze collective memory. They knew they would face rejection and hostility from those who defend illusion as truth, but they came as a rescue team to open the door to the spiritual home. They carry silence as if it were a language. They feel more than words can contain, and they see through eyes that pierce the surface. They don't need to be told when something is false. They know it deep within. 1,000 heralds can proclaim a lie, but they will never bow to it, no matter how many others do. They stand in the way that unsettles those who cannot understand them. They don't need to be convinced of the sacred. It sings within them like a living memory, one they may not be able to name until they are in its presence and their whole being recalls it. And that is why they are often misunderstood, ignored, or even condemned. Wait. It's not easy to task to bring memory to a world addicted to forgetting. It is heavy, isolating, and puts them at odds with the illusion that most still defend. Yet, that is why they came. Many of the beings who walk the earth today were once great radiant beings of light. From higher dimensions, they observed how humanity became so entangled in the false matrix that people could no longer reach the frequency of light that would reconnect them. Forgetting became so dense that those on the surface could no longer sense the presence of the beings of light who waited patiently on the other side of the veil. The great beings of light understood that human beings trapped in density of this realm could only respond to what their eyes saw and their hands could touch. Compassion. Knowing this, the beings of light made a decision, born of a compassion so immense that it still resonates throughout creation. They saw that the forgetful had fallen so deeply into illusion that they might miss the very window of ascension they had come to experience, a window obscured by the weight of distortion. In truth, we will all find our way home eventually, but the danger of this cycle lay in the fact that forgetfulness could cause irreparable damage, keeping souls trapped in limitation far longer than intended. Out of compassion, the beings of light choose to intervene, incarnating so that humanity would not be deprived of the opportunity to ascend with the shift of this great cycle. They choose to come in visible form, in human form, in flesh and blood. They knew this meant surrendering to the same forgetfulness, the same density, the same false matrix that had bound others in samsara. Yet within them lay an indelible seed of home, a connection that ensured the memory would awaken at the appointed time. They trusted that they would remain faithfully when the time came. Culmination of a cycle. This is the moment. This life marks the culmination of a massive ascension cycle. The seeds are activated. The stars, with the arrival of the light codes on Earth, remember who they are and why they came. Their mission is not simply to remember in the tranquility of their own being, but to remember amidst oblivion, to stand before those who still sleep, and to hold the truth so firmly that it expands through the fabric of reality. Before this remembrance, others are stirred, though at first only faintly, as if a blurry light appeared at the edge of their vision and something ancient began to whisper home to them. Why did the forgetful forget? They entered the false matrix long ago, never imagining the depth of the manipulation and distortion that would take root here. They believed that oblivion was a veil that would one day be lifted, not a trap that could hold them hostage for so long. They underestimated the density of the deception and how it would become intertwined with their identity. It was inconceivable to them to be so lost, and yet they were. It is true that anyone can leave the false matrix at any time, but the exit requires you to remember who you are, and it is impossible to remember who you are when you defend the illusion of who you are and believe in the lie with all your being. The trap of illusion. This is what happened to the forgetful. They mistook the illusion for the self, defended it as truth, and clung so tightly to the familiarity of their vision that they began to fight anyone who offered them another way out. Even today, that persists on the surface, and it is the reason why humanity has remained trapped in illusion for so long. Many choose the comfort of the known, even though that comfort was woven from lies. And so, when lightbearers began to appear, endeavoring to question the accepted and to remember the forgotten, the forgetful resisted with indignation, with contempt, and with condemnation. These lightbearers carried the memory of their home, a distant echo that began to unravel the lie as soon as it touched the illusion. Those who had accepted the illusion as truth felt challenged, shaken, and grieved by the presence of truth. And so they fought, not against truth itself, for they knew it was a losing battle, but against those who carried it, hoping that by silencing the bearers of truth, they could preserve the illusion a little longer. However, each act of resistance only revealed their desperation, and each blow against the light became another crack in the prison they so desperately tried to defend. Compassionate rescue team. The beings of light knew this would be the case. They knew they would encounter disbelief, exile, and hostility. And yet their compassion was so immense that they came anyway. They could not abandon humanity. They could not stand idly by while people remained trapped in an oblivion so deep it threatened to erase the memory of home. So they came as a kind of rescue team, not to drag anyone back against their will, because you can never force someone to return home, but to create the conditions in which the freedom of choice could be remembered. The lightbearers of this age became missionaries, walking in human form, not to be superior, but to be catalysts. Their very presence is an invitation. Their constant remembrance creates a resonance that allows others to remember as well. You cannot impose the call to return home, but the missionaries of light make home invisible again by embodying the frequency of home and transmitting it to the collective field. The cost of rejection. That is why their path is not easy. Their refusal to surrender to illusion threatens the fabric of the false matrix, to which so many cling, and that is why they are condemned, rejected and attacked. Yet they continue to remember. They continue to carry the codes of light. They continue to love humanity enough to remain faithfully, even when it costs them everything. Because this was never about duty. It was never about superiority. It has always been a great love story. The light workers came because they remembered the magnificence of humanity, even when humanity forgot itself. They remembered who we are when others could not, and they choose to walk among us so that one day we too might remember. And they don't walk alone. The missionaries of light accompany each other home, shoulder to shoulder, reminding and encouraging one another as much as they remind the world. This is not the work for a single soul. It's the mission of many, and together they keep the door of remembrance open. And in time, even the blind will remember, because the seeing refuse to forget. Economy. Real estate is at its most unaffordable level in history. Banks too big to fail turned to the Fed the day after Christmas for $17 billion and silver implodes. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has saved taxpayers $240 billion in just 11 months. That's $1,329 per taxpayer. Though cryptocurrencies. No. Did you think cryptocurrencies were the future? Asks Jing Quinn. It looks like those who invested in precious metals have won this round. Fiat currencies are dying, but people trust the ounces they can hold more than the electronic digits on a computer. Europe. Common sense returns. The UK scraps hate speech laws. Viktor Orban in quotes. Migration is replacing native borders. To confront Russia, Europe will spend $100 billion it doesn't have, to buy weapons it doesn't have, to arm soldiers that Ukraine no longer has, according to Glenn Diesen. Europe isn't preparing for war, it's preparing for collapse, according to Red Pill Dispenser. They are doing this because their grip on power is rapidly slipping. In Denmark, cows are sick and being slaughtered after an order requiring farmers to add bovine to their feed. This substance threatens human fertility through the consumption of meat and dairy products, according to Valerie Ann Smith. Bovine is a feed additive for ruminants designed to reduce methane emissions produced during digestion. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.